Okay, here we go. The Village of Sayward respectfully acknowledges that we are on the land gathered on this unceded territory of the Comox First Nations, the traditional keepers of this land. Call the meeting to order. Introduction of late items. CAO?
I have two additions. Thank you. I have two additions to the agenda. One is a verbal correspondence from myself, 6F.
6F.
And the other one would be a verbal staff report. Which would be 11F.
Okay. So we are going to approve the agenda as amended. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Minutes of previous. The minutes of the regular council meeting that was held on March 21st, 2023 be adopted, and the minutes from the special council meeting held on March 28th, 2023 be adopted. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Petition and delegations? None. Correspondence. Under correspondence, does anybody have any that they would like to pull? Go ahead, Councillor Tinsley.
I would like to pull, sorry.
Thank you. I would like to pull B and C and E for Edward.
Okay. So correspondence, A, D is the only ones left, right?
And F, the verbal.
F is the verbal, so that's going to be pulled anyway. So the correspondence, A and D be received.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, to correspondence. Councillor Tinsley, you want to start with B?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in this one, I found it interesting. We all have a vested interest in helping with affordable housing. And although we're a small community, I believe it would be possible for us to look at potentially municipal owned land that could potentially be used. And again, this is all no obligation, things like that. I think that's something we can do as a small community to show that our part relative to the request from the provincial government or UBC, I'm sorry. That's my suggestion. Thanks.
Thank you. And did you want to continue on with C, or is that the membership?
Can I make a suggestion that we just discuss whether my suggestion on this is anyone else is interested in that, us participating somehow? I can't see it taking that long for us to just kind of look and say there's a potential on such and such a property.
Did we ask for a staff report to get what available land we have? Because I'm not sure of much available land that we do have.
Right, so maybe that's a moot point. Maybe it's about discussing if we have any interest as a whole first. Okay. And then it would be how do we figure out what we have and how much time do we want to spend doing that if we want to do that. That's my suggestion.
Anybody? Councillor Polson?
Thank you. I had the same conclusion as Tom did, or sorry, as Councillor Tinsley did. When I got to the report that's required by the staff, it's quite in depth, and there's a lot of information to gather, and it looks like that's on every plot of land that's that may be available. So I would suggest that we just first look at what, if any, land is available for that, for future building.
Before we get into, yeah, no, I agree with Councillor Paulson. Anybody else? Councillor Gilkin, microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Paulson on that. I think that's a great idea to start with. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? So do we want to ask Councillor Tinsley?
So I just want to clarify. So the suggestion is that we research what's needed, or?
No, we search if there's land available and what the land that is before the staff get into the,
Yes, now I understand. Thank you. That makes total sense to me. Thanks.
so a motion to have the staff come back in between what? By the end of the month, or how much time do you figure?
We can possibly have it for the next council meeting or for the first council meeting in May.
Okay, so why don't we say staff report to come back at the first council meeting in May, identifying any available lands that this project may fit. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, C. The letter from the UBCM, President Jen Ford, regarding UBCM membership. Councillor Tinsley?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just asked for it to be pulled because I would assume that we're agreeing we want to go forward with this membership.
So do we need a motion on that? Okay, so motion that we renew our UBCM membership for 2023. Good. Motion, please.
I'll second that.
No, we need a first. Sorry.
I will move that.
Thank you. Second,
I will second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. E. Councillor Tinsley, did you want the lead on that one as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just asked for it to be pulled for discussion. I wasn't aware of these recreational boating signs. They are being offered free from the organization. And my suggestion would be that I believe there is 2 locations that are launching areas for the village that would be reasonable to place those signs. That's my suggestion.
I completely agree. I think the only thing that we have to check is neither one of those are village property. The one is on the spit, and I don't know if that's just Island Timber they gave Fish and Seaward Fishing Game the permission to use it. So we would have to check with Island Timber if we could put a sign up there. I'm not sure of the second location you're referring to.
I was actually thinking of the right of way across the Kelsey Bay campground that gets, but that's just a right of way across their property to use that's the village free launch that not many people use.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
Neither was I till I checked on it. But anyway, so, but to your point, those are excellent points. The other idea, that simple idea, and I believe we own up to where the wharf is, Seaward Futures Wharf. That road edge there has very visible things for boaters usually go in there and turn around. Other people turn around, they can see the sign there. So anyway, those are just additional ideas. Thank you.
Councillor Paulson?
Thank you. As I was reading through this, I thought, what a great idea. And then, and it's for free. So we should certainly look at taking advantage of a couple of signs in, even within the village. And I think it would be probably in our best interest to contact the Small Craft Harbor, as well as Sayward Future Society if they want to have one put on their wharf. I don't believe that they own that property. That's the edge of the bank on both sides of the entrance to the wharf. And also, if we wanted to put one along the Sayward Road, the Department of Highways manages that, so we should probably look at contacting them to.
Okay, should we contact Island Timber to see if they'll allow us to
Yeah.
put a sign down on, because that's a bit busy. Okay, so go ahead, CAO.
Thank you. So just for council's information, I've already forwarded the email to Sayward Future Society and copied the MAD representative. And with respect to other ideas, I had thought that it might be a good idea to put it at the on our Telus bar signage at the last two at the end of the streets as you are about to enter onto Sayward Road. So one at this end of Kelsey and one at the other end of Kelsey. And that would be on the Telus bar, basically at the stop signs. There's examples here in the package that show it on the signage. And then with respect to the other organizations, I can easily correspond with their representatives to see if they're interested in having the signs produced,
Okay, thank you.
as you've suggested.
Can you just bring back the information at a later date?
I'm not even sure I need to bring back the information to you unless you want me to, other than just to coordinate the signage. If you give me
Coordinate
direction.
signage, that'd be great.
Yep.
You don't need a motion on that, do you? Just direction to staff. Good. And F, we have a verbal report from CAO, sorry.
Thank you. So the representative from BC Assessment is organizing a bit of a tour of the North Island to visit communities that are willing to hear him provide basically an update on BC Assessment happenings. Just information for council. So he's proposing that he be in Sayward for the next council meeting as a delegation. And I just said to him that I would check and see what your appetite is to receive him as delegation.
What's he looking at presenting?
Thank you. Just information about BC Assessment. I think there's typically questions of BC assessment processes, changes, different spikes in assessment values, things like that. So they kind of go through every couple of years, just tour different regions and visit councils to answer any questions that council may have around the rates or the assessments, pardon me.
Councillor Bichette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great idea, and I also think that it's really important that we let the public know about this because the public usually have a lot of questions regarding how the values are assessed. And when you have someone from BC Assessment really break it down in the numbers, it gives them the best information and it'll come firsthand to them. So as long as we really publicize it and hopefully get some turnout, it would be great for the community.
Councillor Gilkin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a fantastic idea. I know when me and Mr. Mayor and Councillor Bichette were at LGLA, we had a presentation from BC Assessment, and the gentleman that gave it was a lot of detail, a lot of breakdown. So I think that would be great to have for council meeting. Thank you.
Well, we've had BC assessment out here before, but it was done in the gym. It was done in the gym, and it's definitely longer than 10 minutes. So I don't know if it's done as a cow, because as a delegation, because we did it, I don't know if you remember, it was done in the gym. Go ahead, Councillor Tesley.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My suggestion would be they've asked to just come to our meeting and we just describe, we'd love to have you, but 10 minutes is our limit, just so you know, so get her done in 10, that type of thing.
are we going to allow questions from that's,
So I believe the excellent point that Councillor Burchett brought up. I believe the information provided that's available to the public to either attend in person or through the recording would be more than enough. They'll be also giving contact information about where they can receive additional information. That's my suggestion. Otherwise, we could go to some other big formal meeting, but I'm not sure most people are really in the weeds, right? Shall we say? Thanks.
Councillor Paulson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember attending the previous presentation, and I believe it was in the gym because we weren't using the council chambers yet. And I found it very informative, and I'd certainly like a refresher. I can't remember how long it took, but he certainly was open to questions, but he explained all of the taxation levels from residential to the 9 different levels. And it's a good presentation for the public too, if they've got concerns or complaints. So
I agree.
I certainly recommend that we have it.
So the consensus is still keep it as a delegation at 10 minutes? CAO?
Just a reminder to council, you have the option to extend the delegation period if you would like. And just FYI, I am anticipating a second delegation, so there'd be a maximum of 2 delegations for that particular council meeting I think are going to be in place.
Okay. Do we want 2 if this one's going to go long? Councillor Burchett?
I'd recommend that they have their 10 minutes for the presentation, and the question and answering if the public turnout should be counted separately. If nobody turns out, well, they have a 10-minute presentation.
Okay. Councillor Tinsley, you got something? No? Oh, okay. So then I guess we'll ask him to be a delegation. Direction to staff. Go ahead, CAO.
Okay, just for clarification, I just want to understand, are you suggesting that there be a second, or I guess in theory, a third question period? Or council can ask delegation questions, but you wouldn't be opening it up to the public at that time to ask the delegation questions?
I believe it would be, we're opening it up to the public is what you were saying, correct? Councillor Burchett?
If the public show interest and show up, I believe that they should have the opportunity to have question and answer. That's my take. If nobody shows up, then I guess there's no question and answer other than the delegation and council, the mayor.
Councillor Tinsley?
I would suggest that we stick, if it's going to be at the council meeting, we stick to the way the council meetings work in terms of public questioning. I would suggest that if we do want to do something for the public, we go to Kelsey Center or whatever, put the ads out, see how many people show up, and they do the whole thing there. And maybe you get more people that way. Most people, it appears, don't like coming to council meetings in person anyway, but we know they all watch the recordings. But anyway, when you have just one event and they know it starts at a certain time in a gym or whatever, you might get more results for the individual who's coming to do the presentation. And then they would have the full opportunity to go back and forth with questions as long as that person has doesn't have a hotel booked, right?
Okay, but I think we made a decision to have it at the council meeting under a 10-minute process here. What Councillor Burchett's saying, if people are in the audience and they want to ask questions, then give them the ability to ask questions, which is a change in our procedural bylaw. Did you want to say something?
I just want to paint my position as I disagree. We don't want to be changing our procedure bylaw just for this one situation. That's my thoughts anyway.
Right. Anybody else? CAO?
I'll just add that I think that if anybody did have a question, my sense is that the representative will probably provide his contact information and invite people to contact him by email, telephone, as a follow-up. So I wouldn't want to paint the picture that if you came, attended, got some information and wanted to have a question, you wouldn't necessarily not be able to ask it.
Councillor Bichette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, did the correspondence say how long the presentation was or any information? Maybe that's something that we should inquire before we just try to queue them in for 10 minutes, if that's a waste of their time for showing up for 10 minutes. I know that the presentation at the LGLA was about 45 minutes long, at least.
Go ahead.
Through Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure how long it'll be. I was anticipating that it would likely be longer than 10 minutes, which is why I made the comment around council's ability to extend the delegation, the amount of time for delegation. So if you'd like me to ask him if he could keep it to 20 minutes and under, for example, and if he says yes, then I can schedule him. If he thinks that it's, if he tells me that it's a longer presentation, then perhaps I just speak to him about another opportunity later on. And I think it might be worth noting, like, we haven't had a lot of people contacting the village office you know, excited about their assessments. So, you know, as council, I'm not sure that there's a compelling need to have a presentation at this time. But.
Okay, so direction to staff is to check with the gentleman, see how long the presentation is. We make a decision from there. If it's under 20 minutes, then the CAO would like to book them. If it's going to be over, then back to council. Sound good? Okay. So that's all for correspondence. Council reports. Councillor Bichette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this council report is to acknowledge that Councillor Paulson has brought in some native artwork that was given to the late Mayor McDonald, and I think we should have it put up in chambers here. And this gift is a display and testament to our ongoing relationship, building with all members of the community that we live in. And I think it's really important to have in the chambers here. Again, thank you, Councillor Paulson.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Councillor Tinsley?
I totally agree with it's very kind of Councillor Paulson and the estate of the former mayor to donate these items. And my only question is, I know two of the pieces are ready to go, basically ready to put up. But as we've experienced with different things, and I'm not saying this is a deal breaker or anything, but the framing and backing of it's quite a large piece. And I think we need to, you know, potentially request the staff just get a quote on that so we know what we're dealing with. I know I believe I heard that the previous mayor was just, you know, put it up as is, which is fine. So I think we have to just request that quote first before we just say we're going to put, because the other option would be to put it up as is. Most of the indigenous people are not into protecting things as well as, or as much as we like to do in our culture.
The framing.
Yeah.
Right. So give staff direction to come back with a quote. Councillor Bichette?
Yeah, what I meant was with regards to framing or backing, it's probably something like that just needs a backing only. So it'll be more of a limited cost. And if cost is going to be an issue, I would gladly pay for it myself and donate that in kindness.
Okay, so why don't we have, well, first of all, the council receives a report, the council's report, the display of First Nations art in council chambers for information and discussion. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. The second part of this would be that the staff be directed to get a price quote and bring back to council on the matting and putting up the ceremonial blanket. CAO?
Can I make a suggestion that you direct staff to get options or to learn about options for hanging it rather than just to get a quote for framing it
Sure.
and enclosing it?
Sure, let's change it, add the one word options. Okay, all in favor, pardon me, motion? I was jumping the gun.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Reports of committees, none. Mayor's report, verbal. About 3 weeks ago, I got a call from the inspector on the island stating that Chris is moving. Chris is being posted to Tofino. They will be bringing somebody else in. We talked about, he asked, how the kind of personalities of the RCMP corporals that we've had here, and that kind of thing. And I said, we've had no issues with any of the corporals since I've been here at all. They've been engaging with the community, and that's the same type of person that we would expect going forward. And that was it for the conversation. It's very brief, direct, to the point. Cool. So the motion to receive the verbal report.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Unfinished business, none. Staff reports. We're going to go to the Workplace BC inspection of the Sayward Volunteer Fire Department, Hall 1. CAO, do you have anything to jump in on there?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. I assume everybody has read that. So that the council received the Work BC inspection, Fire Hall number 1, staff report for information. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. B, John McDonald Memorial Plaque location. That council received the John McDonald Memorial Plaque staff report for information and discussion. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Amendment to bylaw 476, 2021, reserve fund establishment bylaw. CAO, do you have anything before I go on?
I don't.
Okay. CFO?
No, I have nothing to add. It's this is just a housekeeping issue. So if council doesn't have any questions, then I've got nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to do both together. The council received the amendment bylaw 476, 2021, reserve fund establishment bylaw, staff report for information and discussion, and that staff be directed to return the amendment bylaw to the April 18th, 2023 council meeting for first, second, and third reading. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Public nuisance bylaw. CFO, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have anything to add. I'm hoping that council has had a chance to go through the report and look at the options that are presented tonight. The CAO and I worked together on this report and basically came up with several options for council to consider before moving forward with a draft bylaw. It doesn't really make much sense to bring a bylaw to you until some decisions are made on generator noise and what direction that council would like to go. So for this meeting tonight, it's staff's desire that council decides which option they would like or direct staff accordingly to research further. Thank you.
Okay. Council? Council Bichette?
Yeah, just with regarding option 2 that's recommended, just clarification with the 3-phase system. If one phase goes down, you need a permit for the generator under that circumstances. The latter could be addressed by way of a permit issued by the village for these special circumstances. Just
CFO?
Through the mayor. So that would not require a permit. So any sort of community power outage, if there was it would show up on the BC Hydro outage website if a phase was down. So that wouldn't require a permit. The permit was more for if someone's having like an individual circumstance where their power has to be shut off because they're having a pole installed, that sort of thing. Yeah, thank you.
thanks for clarifying that.
Well, option 2, I'm good with option 2. Anybody else? Councillor Paulson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question about the bullet, where is it at the bottom? How much would the permit cost money, or does it just have to be applied for? So that was one question. And if a permit was required and the bylaw was broken, then how would the fines be collected?
Okay, so
Oh,
through the mayor. So in our research and looking at other communities, permitting could be an option. So it's not necessarily has to be an option. And we would suggest that permits would not have a cost to them. And we're not looking at making them an exhaustive permit, multiple pages, something simple where your property can be registered with us. There's a period of time as the CFO authored in here. If you're getting a replacement pole, let's just say it's a couple of 3-4 weeks type of thing, and that we're aware of it. And that if there is a complaint or even just an inquiry from the public, are you aware that such and such a property has a generator running periodically, we can say yes, and we're aware of it. So there wouldn't be a fee. And again, our comments around ticketing, I think the comments are there. Right now the village responds or does bylaw enforcement per complaint, and we don't have a history of being we're not flippant with our ticketing. So we tend to approach properties and do gradual enforcement.
Councillor Paulson? Go ahead, finish. It's okay.
I really understand that this is a problem when the generators come on. However, it only refers to like generators that people have that come on automatically. So would this also cover the gas generated generators? Because they're also noisy. But I'm having real difficulty with this because there's a lot of reasons that people don't sleep at night, and I can see motorcycles or car screechings and things in the middle of the night. And when there's a storm that the power gets knocked out, I'm usually awake anyway because of the wind and the rain and things banging around outside. So I just have mixed feelings about enforcing a bylaw that requires people to turn their generators off between a certain time.
Go ahead. Councillor Tinsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've looked at a lot of these options. We have to remember that we can sit and also consider them at the next meeting. There's some very important considerations that everyone's talked about. I've also tried to look at balancing the reality, which is we don't have the staffing due to the size of our village and budgetary constraints. To get into a lot of measurements of sound noises and running over at all hours to check that the complaint's valid and delivering tickets. So from my perspective, I really believe that the option 4, which is very simple, which is that there really is no need for generators to be running between those hours, like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., no matter what the type of generator. I have its references. One example is a CPAP machine, but virtually anyone with any kind of medical condition should have, for whether they live here or anywhere else, full backup battery power for situations like that. So I look at this and I say that's the simplest option to be reasonable for everyone. We have quite a large number of power outages here. It's been gradually, supposedly getting better. That's kind of doubtful from some of the figures I've seen. But the key issue, and I believe also the community has received a letter from at least one public participant from a medical doctor about the situation that it causes for people to have generators running when they're not really needed. So I suggest that's the simplest thing and something that this community can manage. I think it's something that most people moving to a village environment would totally understand. And I think it's very important that we really consider all the things I've described as balancing out before we make a decision or vote, because this will have important implications for not only the current residents, but also future residents moving here. People are more cognizant of these things, the health issues around proper sleep that have been previously brought forward through numerous reports to council prior to this report from staff. So again, balancing all these aspects I've talked about, that is the simplest one. The technology is available for people who need things to run when the power's out. There's battery packs available. If they don't have them here, they should have them. They should have them anywhere they're living, right? Battery packs for CPAPs or whatever. It's all doable with today's technology. And the simplest, most doable option for this small community is just those times you can't have them on.
Okay. I completely disagree. Battery packs generally run between $400 to $800 per. There's going to be a lot of people that won't be able to afford that. Also, there are people that it's not just CPAP, it's heat related. For the amount of times that the power does go out here, everybody received that letter this afternoon? Okay. No, you didn't? Okay. It shows from the BC Hydro website, it showed a summary of all the power outages that we've had here in the community. It was sent out earlier this afternoon or later this afternoon. For the amount of times that the power does go out in terms of people for health or heat, I disagree. I personally think number 2 is the fairest option. Anybody else? Councillor Burchett?
I agree with Mr. Mayor. Option 2 seems to be the best overall option. The other thing to consider too is with the flooding that goes on here, some people might have sump pumps in their basements, and that could be a factor as well.
Good point.
And there is techniques and technology to reduce generator noise, and if there is, a decibel level or rating that could work for this, we could look at that. I know it's been stated before, 45 decibels is the recommended, but you're not really going to hear that if you have a windstorm. And again, we do have adverse weather and severe weather, and it can be really cold for days on end if the power's out. So I feel that option 2 is the best at this point.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Tinsley? a rebut?
So, no, it's not really a rebut. What Councillor Burchett is talking about really in terms of decibels would be option 3, which is moderately restrictive. And it refers to decibels during certain times. So I believe this is an important issue that everyone should really read over these different options and some of the factors, and that at the very least, we should not be talking about where we want to go with this until the next council meeting, till everyone's really considered some of the discussions we're having here or further discussions. This is an important issue. And I think to a degree, we're talking about things that, particularly when it comes to the medical issues and backup things, the reality is anything can be done today. And people live in homes that, if, like I said, whether it was Sayward or anywhere else, if they don't have battery backup, okay, that's unacceptable for them and their personal health, right? So whether it's Sayward or anywhere else, so
Right.
well, most of the people, I can't speak for everyone, right? Can't keep everyone happy. Not all of us have those medical problems. In many cases, the minority, but the other thing we have to consider is the majority of what is in the best interest of the public, both in terms of the resale of the property, both in terms of the view of the community in the eyes of people wanting to move here or move out, right? So I think these are all good suggestions, and I think we should even debate it more prior to either making a decision, or my suggestion would be it's that important that we really look at this detail and more and not make any decisions or votes until the next council meeting.
Councillor Gilkin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Tom, for your input. I'm heavily leaning towards option 2, but I do agree with Councillor Tinsley. We should put this off, and everybody can kind of have a sit down and really think about the options. I think that's where I'm leaning. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Burchett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One quick comment too. What do we do with the people that have spent $10,000, $15,000 for a nice grid tie automatic generator? Do they get grandfathered in? Does this blanket, if we have a decibel level agreement, that everyone has to comply to it now? So is this food for thought with existing infrastructure?
Councillor Tinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, very good points from Councillor Burchett. In terms of the ones that are $15,000 installed, and there is, again, technology so that if the power does come on and as it has done sometime, or gone off in the middle of the night for 10 minutes and then come back on again, there's a couple of things. One is you can control it. So you can set, with technology, you can set things anyway so that you can either have it not come on unless the power's gone off for a certain length of time, a longer length of time than 10 minutes. And you can also decide that if you're away from the home, for instance, on vacation or something like that, it's not going to be needed regardless because you're not there. You can set it so that it's like, if there's power outages, no, I don't want it to kick in because I'm not even there. So all of this can be solved with technology, but I agree there's some other good points in addition to this. I'm just adding to his points, which is that there's considerations, whatever way we go, around all the options, all the things we talked about, but also how that rolls out, both in terms of, as Councillor Paulson mentioned, people with, roly-poly little gas ones like us, way out in the shed in the back, and those decibel levels and the decibel monitoring and things like that. So all good points, and I think it's a really good discussion. Thank you.
Rick. Councillor Burchett.
The other thing we might want to consider is cost and compliance. So the power is off all night, comes on at 3 a.m. Someone's generator is still going. Are we sending out a bylaw officer at 3 a.m. to ticket them or check their decibel level? I really don't see that happening. So essentially, we won't be able to recover any bylaw fines if someone is in breach of this. So I think cost and compliance is a definite consideration if this is going to be something that's going to be enforceable.
Well, why don't we, as Councillor Tinsley suggested, instead of debating all of it now, take the 2 weeks to the next meeting, we'll take D, the public nuisance bylaw, and move it to the following council meeting. We don't need a motion for that, do we?
You receive it and then.
Sure.
make a motion to-
Okay. Go ahead, CEO.
I just wanted to, sorry, I wanted to answer Councillor Polson's question that yes, the gas generators were included as part of the conversation around generators.
Okay, so the council received the public nuisance bylaw staff report for information and discussion.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried, and the council moves the public nuisance bylaw for further debate for the April 18th, 2023 council meeting. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Financial plan 2023, 2027. That council received the financial plan 2023, 2027 staff report for information and discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. CAO, CFO, anything to add?
Nothing from me, thank you.
CFO?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. If council
Okay.
wants to have me walk you through the report, I can certainly do that, but no, I don't have anything further to add. Thank you.
Okay. And that resolution that the 2023, 2027, oh, sorry. Got ahead. All in favor on receipt? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the 2023, 2027 financial plan, be approved, and that the staff be directed to prepare the required bylaws related to the 2023, 2027 financial plan for the April 18th, 2023 regular council meeting. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. CFO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there's just one part of my report here that I'd like council to look at, and that was the scenarios on the allocation for tax revenue for 2023. So that's something that has to be included in the bylaw. And so staff is looking for direction on which scenario council would like to go with. And that's on page 70, page 70.
You were close.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
CEO?
can I suggest that the CFO just bring you through this page? And we didn't have any comment further to what was reported in the report initially, but I think now that we're at this section, if the CEO could just bring you through this section and explain it to you.
By all means,
Thank you.
go ahead, CFO.
Okay, so what this is doing is it's basically moving the burden from class 1 to the other classes. And I know that was something that council wanted to look at. It was mentioned at the last committee, the whole meeting, I believe, that, you know, tax ratios is something that you're interested in and how things can be reallocated. So I just did a few scenarios, couple scenarios here. So the very first table is based on 2022's allocations. And that's the column that says percent allocation, second from the right. So every class is given a percentage allocation that taxes apply. And then that calculates out to what revenue is needed for each class. So for example, you can see that class 1 is almost 60%, class 5 is just over 30%, class 8 is under 1%, and that's mostly because there's all Class 8 properties in Sayward have permissive tax exemptions besides one. So a very small allocation can be put towards Class 8. Otherwise, that one property would be paying a huge amount of tax if the allocation was not brought down to a low level. So what I've done is I've just done two scenarios, which is shifting the burden from Class 1 to Class 5 and Class 7. Class 5 is managed forest, and Class 7 is managed forest, and Class 5 is light industry. And just for council's reference, all properties in the village that are classed 5 or 7 are Island Timberlands properties. So scenario 1 is sort of a moderate shift, and it's reducing the allocation for Class 1 down to 58% as opposed to 59.944 in the first scenario, the base. And then scenario 2 is reducing the burden on Class 1 even further down to 56.5%. And what I've done on the next page is I've just done some calculations on each scenario as to what effect that would have for Class 7 and Class 5. So for example, so this is on page 71 at the top, scenario 1, with that reallocation, Class 7 would experience a 52% increase in their tax bill, and Class 5 would experience a 7% increase in their tax bill. So the 2022 column is taxes paid in 2022. 2023 would be the taxes paid this year, and then the dollar increase is listed there. And similarly for scenario 2, if council went with scenario 2, Class 7 would experience a 95% increase in taxes, and Class 5 would experience a 12% increase. So if you're looking at the totals, yeah, I'll get to that. For scenario 1, Island Timberlands would experience about $11,000 increase in taxes, and scenario 2, $19,000 increase in taxes for 2023. And then the next little chart is just a little breakdown on what that effect would be on Class 1 for each option, for each scenario. So I've listed municipal taxes. The base for 2023 would be just over $2,600. That includes user fees, so taxes, municipal taxes and user fees. If council went with option 1, scenario 1, that would be reduced to $2,580. If council went with option 2, scenario 2, it would be reduced even further to $2,540-ish. And so what that does, I've broken that down into a dollar amount and a percentage amount. Base Class 1 would see a 13.05% increase to their taxes this year. If council went with option 1, they would see a 10.9% increase to their taxes this year. And similarly, option 2, a 9.23% increase to their taxes. So staff, we're just looking for what council would like to do this year. If you are still wanting to look at a reallocation between the classes, and if so, which scenario you'd like to go with, or if you would want to suggest a different scenario. Thank you.
I support 1. Scenario 1. Sorry, go ahead. Councillor Bichette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I definitely support option 2.
Councillor Tinsley.
I believe option 2 is the route to go because I believe those industries and landholders are not paying their fair share as it is. There are also industries that are, to use the setting sun industries to a degree. I believe that sends a message to them, and they can afford it. I know that they can. And it also reduces some of the taxes on the residential owners, which is the primary use of land in terms of human enjoyment in this area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Paulson.
I think option 2 is the way to go too, and I agree with Councillor Tinsley about Councillor Tinsley. You said number 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they pay minimal right now. And is that covering the utilities that we provide?
Okay. Councillor Gilkin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm with everybody else, option 2. We're all about cutting taxes, and I think we should be sharing the cost equally with larger corporations for this village. So I agree with option number 2.
Okay, so if option 2 is it, then we need a motion to. Okay, so that staff be directed to implement option 2 for the financial plan for 2023-2027. Councillor Bichette,
I'll move that.
second.
I will second that.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, we did all the other appropriate motions, correct? Thank you. Kelsey Center report from 2023, March.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, there was a late added verbal
Oh,
staff
that's
report.
right. Yeah. Staff report F from the CAO.
Thank you, sir. Just for information purposes, I'm just trying to stay ahead of the news here a little bit. Just to notify council that 2 of our 3 applications for a campground expansion and visitor information center have been declined. The 2 largest grant applications we did, which were the identical applications to 2 different organizations. We've also received notification from ICE-T that, well, I've emailed ICE-T today just for looking for some clarity from them regarding their notification. They state twice that we approval of our application, but then they state that unfortunately the board was unable to provide full approval of the full amount. Nonetheless, the ICE-T application, if you'll recall, was a top-up, was intended to be a top-up of the $1 million, 1.1 million, and almost $1.2 million application to the other funds. So right now in this early stages, we're even unsure whether we can apply to stage 2 of the ICE-T funding. So these type of announcements tend to be followed by news reports, and I just wanted council to be aware of when you see or don't see the Village of Sayward Campground as an approved project. I just wanted to give you a heads up as to why.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things with ICE-T is they've been shorted 120 million from their operating capital. They've been given 30 million and they were supposed to get 150 million. So because of that, there's going to be many projects that are not going to be fully funded to the 50% or other. Okay, so do we need a motion to receive that report? No. Okay, thank you. Kelsey Center report that council received, the Kelsey Center Recreation Center March 2023 staff report for information and discussion. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. CAO, do you have anything to add?
Only to add that this is the first report that you're seeing from the Recreation Center in terms of the types of activities, programs, and services that the center is offering the community. And I think the manager even went one step beyond my expectations, specifically with the second page and starting to provide a breakdown of the statistics that the different programs are seeing. So I really think it's a good information for council, just to have a sense of what's going on there and participation. And myself and the recreation manager will just continue to try to flesh out this type of details for you as we proceed forward.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you. I was really impressed with this report, and then I felt really sad about the cuts coming to the program in order to save money, and it just seemed to me like it was since last year we've been trying to get all of the programs up and running and going, and there's increased attendance, and some of the programs are super successful. And I looked through the different amounts of revenue that the different programs brought in and thought, does it really make sense to cut the hours and cut the programs when this has just gotten going and rolling, and how much further it could go? And even cutting the Kelsey Center back to May to October, what a loss that is for our community. I just think, and for the sake of saving $25,000, the pool has to be heated anyway. If we could turn the pool off and save propane, but we can't. And so the biggest loss is to the staff and the employees that are going to go somewhere else. And we're going to be back in the same situation we were 2 years ago. So I just want to say to the manager, what an excellent job she's done, and just to have it cut, it's very disappointing.
Regretfully, we're not getting the participation to offset that cost. And if we put that $25,000 back into there, where do we take it from? I don't know. Councillor Tinsley, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Paulson, and I think we all, I think I can speak for us all. It's tough to see us go backwards as the manager there is doing an excellent job. So I hope the staff has passed that information on. I suggest that we have to do what we have to do because of the budget. It also is a message to the public. There will be people, I believe there already has been people who are quite concerned about the early closure. But we have to remember this is what I've used the term crunch year because of the SRD report and looking at what's going on. Something has to give with the center. And this unfortunately is needed this year in this crunch year. And then it's going to go one way or the other to solve the problem in the future. So feeling the same way, I just suggest that we all remember this is crunch year and analysis years for the center. So that's my 2 bits. Thanks.
Councillor Burchett.
I'd like to say that the report is great, and Michelle did a great job. One thing that sticks out for me is Western Forest Products donating $1,000 for the Kelsey Center team program, which I think is excellent. But when you look at how the center was built from the previous forestry company that operated here, it's kind of a drop in the bucket that, we could have better corporate sponsorship for our Kelsey Center that might offset these costs. And it might be something that we build a better relationship with Western to get them to participate more in our community, whether that's through council, mayor, or through staff approaching them. But I think we have to cross that bridge and look for corporate sponsorship to keep our facility going and to not let our community down.
One of the difficulties that Western Forest Products is having right now is with Island Timber, and they don't have a lease. And it's a constant battle for them to try to get a lease. And they keep saying they're not going to spend or do, whether that be some equipment or anything else, until they can secure a lease and know they're going to be here. So that's one of the difficulties that Western's having because of Island Timber. Go ahead.
So just a question about the lease. We're talking about them securing a lease for the log sort?
That's correct.
So the lease has just come up recently?
Yeah, the lease has not been negotiated. Island Timber has not signed on the bottom line for a lease agreement with them. So at any point without a lease agreement, WFP could be gone. Go ahead.
So just to understand, they've never had a lease
No,
agreement?
they've had,
And it expired
That's correct.
about how long ago? Fairly recently?
was it 2 years
So it's been sitting there for 2 years.
or something like that?
Okay.
I don't have the detail on that.
No, but thanks for the clarification. I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah, no, they've had leases in the past. Councillor Paulson?
Thank you. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, I think I've brought it up a few times, is the indication from SRD that they were going to do an analysis. And I believe that was to start September 2020 and supposed to be completed by spring of 2021. And a report from the previous council, or to the previous council, was that it got delayed. And I wonder if there's any way that SRD can be given a little boost or a poke to, like, this. So this is 2 years now, and we're still waiting for a decision on whether the SRD is going to go regional with the all of the rec centers in the north. And it's just like, it's beyond time that,
It's frustrating.
yeah. So I wonder if there's any way they can be given a nudge to move forward, get the report out so that we can get on with it. This starting and stopping is just.
CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess just a couple of pieces of feedback for you. I echo everything you're saying around the shortages and the cutbacks. And I am a glasses half full person. So I do see, creating an opportunity, using these staff reports and providing more clarity around the programs and services that are occurring, actually shining a light on, in many instances, how they are being underutilized. Should be, or I like to think that it can be a bit of a shout out to the community that, look, at these are some of the programs and services that are being organized for you. Come out and use them, and give us ideas if you have ideas. We were talking about staff. Wouldn't it be great for the CFO and I to be able to sit alongside and watch a basketball game between the community and all of council? That would be Sayward versus
Maybe one or two from council.
Sayward versus all of council, 5 basketball players against 5 basketball players, and that would probably generate some good some good turnout. But on a serious note, I am glasses half full. I think the report shows what type of opportunities exist in Kelsey Center, and they also show that there's a lot of opportunity for people to get out and partake more than they are. With respect to the SRD, I can tell you that there is a meeting organized for sometime in the next 7 to 10 days that I'm attending. I believe it's an all-day meeting to go through and review the recreation study that's happening. I can tell you, I did have a conversation with the SRD staff, and it was put clear to me that this study was not about how can we supplement the cost sharing of recreation services on the rest of the North Island. It's about perhaps creating some synergies with the programs and services. So it's an opportunity to look for operational synergies versus cost sharing. But council, through our budget and strategic planning processes, has already directed staff to, and we've already said we are committed to working with, or committed to researching and identifying certain different opportunities for cost sharing.
The study is also going to show when it does come out, from conversations I've had with the CAO at the SRD, it's also going to show whether or not, in terms of the Kelsey Center becoming a regional service, which means that Area A would pay the same amount as every person or every home in our community. So, but until we see that study, I don't know yet. Go ahead.
This is all great information. Just add one thing, and the CAO can correct me if I'm wrong. But as I understand, most, even in large centers, recreation centers of various sizes, whatever, generally don't pay for themselves, right? So it's not that we're anticipating even breaking even ever, but we're just all acknowledging it's a real struggle for a small community with a center this size. So anyway, that's
correct. You are right. They don't make money. They don't break even. They're always run at a loss. It's just a question of what loss. And one of the things that is common throughout the most regional districts or some regional districts and ours is that you have people that are not paying that use the facilities. So you have other areas outside of the municipality, not just ours. This happens in other areas as well that are sort of getting milk for free. And that's what this study is supposed to address as well. So bylaws, Council Procedure Amendment, Bylaw 496. 2023 be given first, second, and third reading. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to suggest that we table this motion until we have a written report on the background, and we've only ever received a verbal report, and quite frankly, I can't even remember what that verbal report was on why this bylaw was being brought forward to be amended. So I would like to request a report on the background and the history so that people that weren't aware of how this bylaw came to be and then not be and now wanting to be again can make an informed decision on it.
Okay. We did talk about it then, and everybody voted in favor of bringing it back. Bringing back the second, the beginning question period. That was something that was discussed.
Mr. Mayor, has Councillor Paulson made a motion?
No,
Okay.
I didn't hear him. Did you make a motion? I don't think you made a motion. And we were on another motion. So she can't make a motion during a motion, is that correct? Yes. Thank you.
So if we make the motion to pass the bylaw, then, or to take first, second, and third reading, then what comes up in the discussion where?
Well, no, you have an option of not voting in favor of it.
Oh. Okay.
So on the motion that is on the floor is the bringing back the question period, I assume. So it's motion 496. Given second and third reading. First, second, and third, pardon me. So we have the motion that's on the floor. So we need a motion. We did that. Second. Got seconded. Okay. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, one opposed. Motion is carried. New business. None. Public question period. Do we have one? Okay, just a sec. The purpose of the public question period is for you to ask a question of council and the issue that is important to the citizen. Speakers are asked to limit to their question to one. And if time permits, everyone has an opportunity to ask questions. The speaker may ask a second. Citizen will be asked to state their name and address, please.
My name is Craig Nielsen. I live at 420 McMillan Drive. I've listened to your discussion of the nuisance bylaw, and it's quite concerning. Effectively, I would tell you that option 2 is really no different than option 1. That if you're going to rubber stamp permits for people with medical exemptions, that's not an option. What I'd like to know is, did the staff review other jurisdictions and find other jurisdictions where they had allowed some type of a medical exemption for generators?
Well, I think what we could do is have the staff want to answer that now, or do you want to get back to the gentleman on that?
I would suggest that the citizen ask his questions and we'll collect them and then we can respond to them
Okay,
afterwards.
and we'll get all the information.
Okay. No,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Oh, okay. In camera, that in accordance section 92, this council meeting will be closed to the public at the time and the order to give considerations to matter in accordance with the following sections of the community charter, 90-1 labor relations or employee relations. And 17, adjournment of the regular. Need a motion on that, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. 17, adjourned.